nervous.
Mm. Mm. Okay, so go ahead, tell us who you are and what you do.
Well, thanks, Laurie, for inviting me as one of your guests today. It's a real pleasure to be here. So I'm Sarah. I am an artist. I like to call myself an artistic alchemist, actually, because it sort of supports the sense of, taking your base materials and creating pieces of magic. Because that's what I do. I create magical, whimsical animals and angels and with like vibrant and bold colors that are semi-abstract, and they usually have some sort of meaningful message behind them as well for sort of your personal development. But I'm also, alongside that, I am a creativity guide. And so I support women to um, move through self-sabotage and the emotional overwhelm to find more empowerment and sovereignty in their decision making and the way that they live their lives. And I help them do this by the use of their own authentic creativity, but I also use storytelling, our cultural traditional stories and archetype wisdom as well. So that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah, so I would love to hear about how you got into doing what you're doing.
Well, it was by accident, really. And it was a very pleasant and happy accident because I'm really pleased that I do this for my job. Uh, it's more of a job, really. It's like a vocation. But for 18 years, I was a teacher, a primary school teacher, and my mum died 6 years ago, and then I suffered a series of traumatic events that ensued, and I felt that even though my school was really supportive, that the system of working as a teacher didn't support me recovering from this trauma, and so right on the brink of COVID and the lockdown, which I didn't realize what really was happening in the world, and how that was all going to affect us. I handed in my notice as a teacher without any intention of finding another teaching job. Now, I don't recommend this at all because I left the profession with absolutely no plan or idea of what I was going to do next. But that's what I did. And I've never done anything so crazy in my life. But it felt like the right thing to do. I was in the classroom, I felt really heavy and bogged down with everything. And I just thought, I can't do this anymore. I just cannot do it. And so anyway, because I was healing, I started drawing again and painting. I've always been quite creative. And then I started sharing some of my work online and thinking, oh, I'll just make a little bit of pocket money out of this, while I find something else more grown up to do. And and people started saying, how much is this? And anyway, so my work has evolved tremendously since then, but that's how it all started, a happy accident. And in 2021, I decided that art was, I was going to embody, the me as an artist, and I looked at, investing in my business and getting mentorship to support me along my journey. So yeah, that's how it
That's
all
quite
started.
a journey.
I know, but sometimes I think about it. I think it's only been 4 years, and so much has happened in that 4 years, and so much has changed for me and my loved ones. And it's it's quite amazing, and the friendships that I've made along the way as well. It's a yeah, it's quite magical in itself when you think, when I think back on it, because it's how far I've come. So yeah.
Yeah, and I would say lots changed in the world as well.
Yeah, exactly. It almost feels like both things have mirrored the the lockdown sort of almost mirrored my grief that I was experiencing. Um, and they often say grief affect, the lungs are affected by grief. So you could almost see COVID as a metaphoric expression of us grieving, for the climate change and the destruction that's happening all over the world. And yeah, so COVID sort of seemed to mirror my grief. And then as we came out of lockdown, it was like, oh, bright colours again, with my art. Yeah, that's interesting. Actually, I've never thought about it like that, but yeah.
What is your current strategy for networking to get in front of potential clients?
Well, networking has been an evolution with me because I think the term networking often makes me shudder because I think of it as, sort of something that corporate people do. And there's nothing corporate about me whatsoever. And so I've often sort of thought, oh, I can't do it because I don't fit into that tribe. Now I realize that that was just a stereotype that I had, and there's lots of different ways that I network. So, I mean, the main thing really, and the thing that is really the most successful is having conversations with people. So, when they comment on my artwork or on posts where I'm sharing a story about, what I've been through, uh, you know, or sharing a course, an aspect of a course that I've created, not I've learned. I mean, I don't do this with every single comment, but I try and look for ways in which I can develop conversations from those comments rather than just saying, oh, thank you, um, which I did a lot of at the beginning. So that's one way I do some networking is actually creating connections, having conversations to create connections. And then when I feel that the time's right, I can then take that into Messenger, and thank them for the support they've been giving me for my work, or ask them to elaborate on things that they've shared, that they might feel more uncomfortable about, in the public. So that's two ways, I guess, I do the networking. I also I'm a member of lots of different groups where I feel my tribe hang out. And actually, you are really good at this, Laurie, because you are really good at adding value in other people's groups. And it's what got you noticed by me because you were supporting me in other people's groups, supporting my mindset or supporting the idea of a strategy. And so I think that's a really valuable way of networking is adding value in other people's groups, because obviously selling an offer is usually, goes against the rules of a group. But if you can go in and you can support people, you can share experiences, that adds value, which I think is really essential part of networking. So those are my main ways.
Yeah, because it's not, networking isn't even just going to specific groups designated for networking. It's basically everywhere. And
Yeah.
it can kind of be in any group. The only thing I don't really consider networking is if you're just hanging out with the same people and never meeting new people through that group.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah, I
I think that's
agree.
great because that's your friends, but networking is also about accomplishing something.
Yeah, and I think that it's important to, as you said, it's everywhere you are, and it doesn't have to mean sales. It's just having conversations and letting people know what you do. You could be at a swimming pool and do that with someone that is getting you've just met when you're putting your shoes back on, and you have a conversation. It could be someone in a shop. It's just about it's just finding ways you can just be visible, I guess, and they don't have to be like big groups or events that you do that. I agree. Yeah.
How is your strategy for networking different than other artists that you know?
I think. there are artists that are on different points of their journey. So there'll be artists that were like me at the beginning of my journey as an artist who will be going, you know, oh, thank you, and then not taking that anywhere, even though that person has been expressing lots of love for the work that they do. And, you know, so I'm not sure how different I am to everybody, other than we're all on different places in our journey. But what I do is I've always done this. When I want to learn how to do something, I look at people who are already successful in the field that I wish to be. And those people who are successful are finding ways they can collaborate with people, finding ways they can have conversations and connections with people, looking for clever, interesting, you know, ways of displaying their artwork, or approaching, you know, bigger companies that might, or social media influencers who might be able to support them along their journey. And so I guess that I will be different from the artists who are just starting out and who might be a bit more introverted than me. And that, but I'm not quite at the stage of the really sort of, you know, absolutely successful, making, you know, 10 grand every month, if not more, yet. But I think that being an artist supports me in my creative ways of thinking about how to make connections and network. Yeah.
How have you changed the way that you network over time since you started selling your artwork and programs? Because I assume it's changed.
Yeah, I mean, everything changes when you gain more confidence, or you see something that someone else is doing and you try it out and it kind of works, you know. I think that the biggest way I've changed, there's quite a few ways I've changed actually. Maybe the top two biggest ways I've changed. The first one is that I'm not always thinking about new people coming into my community, but nurturing the people that are already there. And that has had tremendous value because, of course, when new people do come into your world, they see how you're treating people who are already there. And so they get a sense of what will come for them. That has been really enlightening for me, because I think at the beginning, I thought that it was all about getting new sales from different people, you know, and therefore I would have to network and get lots and lots of people coming into my community. And now I sort of, even though I really did believe deep down it was quality over quantity, I still feel like I chased the numbers. You know, I still thought, well, how can I get quality if I haven't got enough people coming through? And now I realise that it's quite different to that. I think also, I think the other way the way I network is that I'm really far more confident about who I am and myself as an authority in the field that I work in. Whereas before I always felt a little bit like everyone else knows more than I do, you know, how can I possibly offer them anything different? So I guess that those ways, it's really, you know, that has been really fundamentally the two main ways that it's changed over the 4 years that I've been working.
I've actually noticed those two ways in my own, because I realized, oh, I don't just want to get people in, I want to nurture those people that are in my audience more.
Yeah.
And so that's definitely changed, but I not like totally turned it off where I'm not getting any new people in. So it's
No,
kind of a balance.
it is, you know, and you're right, you know, and that it's not yeah, that's not what I meant. Um, but you know, to clarify, I meant what you're saying, you know, that it's a balance of the two. But I think before, I think I was focused more on getting new, you know, meeting new people and connecting with new people. Now I realize that there is, I think also, I don't know if you've ever went through this as in your business, where you you feel guilty if one person buys a lot from you. You want to sort of spread it out. You feel like, well, it shouldn't just be your responsibility to buy everything from me. I want other people to come and buy. I thought that people would only want to buy once from me and then that would be it. I just didn't see that actually people really invest when they love you and they care about you. They really invest in you and they want everything that you have got to offer. And that was a big eye opener for me because I didn't know that that was what would happen. I thought it was all about, one person would buy something one month and another person would buy things from me the next month, and it would all be more shared out. But I realized that, and I don't know why I didn't realize that, because I have people that I care about and love and invest my time in. I mean, we all have favorite pop stars or music bands that we love and we invest in everything that they offer. So it's only a similar kind of emotional response, isn't it? So yeah, I don't know why I felt bad about just having a few people who bought from me, but yeah, that's past now, by the way.
Yeah, repeat customers is a thing.
mm, mm.
What do you think is the most important thing for business owners to start networking?
I think to actually just consider connection over everything else. I think I made the mistake right at the beginning. I didn't ever feel like some sort of sleazy salesperson, but I couldn't seem to strike the balance between, um, wanting to sell my artwork, of course, because I do need to live, um, sell my courses. I felt it, I felt like impatient for that, impatient for the sale. So now I have changed my frequency and my energy to just concentrate on connections and then trusting that that connection, if it's meant to be, will turn into a sale. And if it's not meant to be, then my abundant mindset means that there'll be more people coming through. So I think that, but also I've touched on it a bit earlier, stepping into your authority. I think this year, more than any year, I've really stepped into, I'm an artist, I know what I'm talking about, and I also know what I'm talking about when it comes to personal development and spiritual, awakenings. And owning that has been really empowering. And I think that has really shifted things for me this year, really shifted, so I've had one of my best years since trading as Sarah Bowden Art. And you do your, and also finding your voice, because I mean you do your unpopular opinions that, and there are a lot, that's actually quite, I've never seen that before, so that's quite unusual. But the principle behind it is you're ruffling some feathers, you're getting people talking, you're getting people interacting with one another. And I don't think you always, one has to always be controversial in the way that we encourage conversations and so on. But I do think we need to have something to say. Do you know what I mean? I think
Yeah, I ruffled some feathers with this, but actually, even though they might not be super popular in your circles, I've seen them in some of my circles because I'm following people who you're not seeing, which
yeah,
I started realizing this. I was seeing all this stuff on my wall, and then I have to remember, oh yeah, but my audience isn't looking at all of those things on my wall.
yeah, sure, yeah. I mean, I do have a few people in my world who I follow who make, opinion, share big opinions. I just meant the whole kind of unpopular opinion, that sort of headline, and you sort of think, and it's it takes a lot of willpower to ignore that unpopular opinion, I have to say. So I can, it has a lot of power to make, even if I don't always comment on them, I'm often reading what everybody else is saying about the things, so it is a very good strategy, I think, to encourage engagement on your posts. But I think that the important thing is that you have something to say. So that's what I would, I don't think you have to be all out there and controversial, but you have to be a little bit more than vanilla. You have to have something that is behind why you're doing what you're doing. So there are some artists, for example, who are big on using sustainable materials and things, and that's the thing that they're talking about, and that's fantastic. And then there's me, who's talking about, finding your joy, and and having a lot to say about what that actually means. And it's all about female empowerment as well, that I talk about too. So yeah, I think it's just having having something you say, being an authority on what you are doing and really owning it, and deepening connections with people. Yeah.
Would you say you're more introverted or extroverted, and how does that affect the way that you network?
Well, I think I'm more extroverted, really, although I have my introverted moments. Extrovert means I have no problem going live, and doing the whole, showmanship of my business, of celebrating everything that is going on. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with visibility, other than how to be more visible. I'm not frightened of being visible. And I know this is a big thing for a lot of people, particularly when they are introverted. So I'd say that being an extrovert means I can feel comfortable with some of the things that people feel uncomfortable with. But of course, I have my own comfort zone, and there are things that even my extrovert nature will feel fear around. And I also have times where I feel introverted. So, I think it probably comes from just not being in the right place sometimes, that I don't feel comfortable to share myself. And also, but my art allows me to be, it satisfies my introverted side, because it's sort of, I'm in flow, I'm kind of what's the word, embodying me at that moment. I don't have any kind of interruption of what's going on around me. So it kind of satisfies my introverted self that likes my own company. But yeah, so I think on balance, probably extrovert, and in the way it affects my business is it enables me to be more visible comfortably.
And I know this is kind of related, but do you prefer like groups or more one-to-one types of conversations?
Well, despite being an extrovert, I do actually prefer one-to-one conversations rather than groups. I think that one-to-ones just offer more value. It just creates more depth in the moment, whereas when you're in a group situation, I've been on some networking events where it feels a little bit like speed dating, and that doesn't feel good to me. I don't enjoy that. I'm not suggesting all group networking events are like that, but that's some of my experience. And even if I was in a group, I think I would be selective about who I want to spend my time talking to. And I just feel sometimes in group situations, it can feel a little bit like everyone's being a social butterfly and no one's really listening to each other. They're flitting around trying to talk to as many people as possible. So even if I was in a group situation, I think I would choose a couple of people and have good conversations with them. um I just think it's more satisfying. Yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely found with these networking events, particularly the ones that go fast, it's better to have a coffee chat with the people that you think you might want to get to know better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Would you say being uncomfortable is part of the entrepreneur skill set?
Oh, undoubtedly. If you stay in your comfort zone, it just all stays the same. And we all have to go through an up, we all have to go through an up leveling situation at different points in our journeys. And then that up leveling then turns into a bit of a comfort zone for a while. But there gets to a point where if you think, oh, everything's sort of like static, nothing's really changing, that's usually the time when you've got to do something a little bit different. But I'm also, having been through a lot of trauma, I also recognize that going too far out of your comfort zone can be very dysregulating. So I operate on and I support women to do this as well, is that, you know, if you want to get over there, what are the small steps you can take that just increasingly take you out of your comfort zone? Because, you can do what's out there, but it can make you feel sick and terrified and tell your body that it's completely unsafe to do that, which is not a good thing for if you want to repeat it. So it's kind of like it's not a very good analogy, but the frog in the boiling water. When you just increase the water just by small increments, it won't notice the change. And I think that is a more successful, for me anyway, way of going out of my comfort zone is going in small increments outside it. Otherwise it's too overwhelming.
Did you invest in upgrading your networking skill set?
um I haven't specifically invested in my networking skill set. But I guess whenever you invest in anything to do with your business, there is an element of up leveling your networking that will be part of. I mean, I've invested in big courses which, had an element of how to attract people and, and talk to people and have conversations with people. So yes, I'm not averse to investing in any of my business skill sets, and networking would be one of them. Yeah, so not specifically networking, but indirectly. Yeah.
Did some of those investments help more than others?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the beginning I invested a lot in these sort of big courses that really are very good for certain people, and businesses. But I found that the more traditional ways of marketing aren't aligned with me. And so because they weren't aligned, I wasn't really getting the success that these big courses promised. So I decided to find people who were challenging the traditional marketing strategies, and they've become my mentors and people who have guided me. And I wanted my marketing strategies to be more ethical, um, and feminist as well. So there are lots of people on social media that I listen to and think about what they've said, and I've invested in I've invested in my time in courses and challenges that they have offered. As a result, I'm a bit more wise now about what I feel works for me and my business, but I wouldn't have been able to know that had I have not invested in things that didn't quite work. So, it's not a regret that I did what I did. It's more of a gift, because it's allowed me to find ways to honor myself and the people that come into my tribe. And I think I'm more aware of, I find these big events and big courses, they're really good for generating your excitement, and you get like, oh yeah, I'm going to go and do it, I'm going to go and do it, and then it's like you do it, it doesn't work, or you don't do it because you've lost the momentum of being around all that energy. And so I kind of feel safer and happier in groups where we're all, it's smaller, and more personal. And actually, I mean, my next step would be, I would want to work with someone who on a one-to-one basis when I can, because now I feel that would be really helpful and beneficial for me and my business. So yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a journey, and I've been through a lot of different things where I got something out of it, but I didn't necessarily get everything that I wanted to out of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you make some online connections when networking that you invested more time in than you should have invested?
Well, I think that I probably have sort of answered that a little bit, yeah, I mean, I think there are, I think that it's a journey. So you're going to make mistakes, aren't you? You're going to, you know, connect with people. You think, oh, this is a really good person to connect with. And then, a couple of months later, they're not the person you thought they were going to be, or even sooner, hopefully. So you haven't wasted all that time. But I think I'm trusting more and more in my intuition and my instincts. So not to say that I'll never make mistakes again, but the mistakes aren't quite so big anymore. And but yeah, I've definitely aligned myself with things that later on I've realized that's not for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we all have, and that's an important part of networking is to be okay with having made mistakes and
Yeah.
keep doing it.
Yeah. And actually that's a good mantra for life, really, isn't it? We can get very stuck in the mistakes that we make, but really that's all they are, is mistakes. But it takes quite a while, I think, or it has done for me anyway. I'm quite a perfectionist, or I'm a recovering perfectionist, I call myself. So I'm a lot better than I used to be. But mistakes used to really, I'd find it really hard to let go of mistakes. But fortunately, my art has enabled me to let go of that and realize that you can turn mistakes into good things, or you can fix them.
Yeah. So I know you mentioned intuition with the last question. So, um, how do you use intuition when networking and tap into it?
Yeah, so intuition is something that, it's really bizarre, because I used it all the time as a teacher, but I didn't know I was using it. And I certainly would have, um, I would have been very dismissive of anyone celebrating women's intuition. I grew up, and I think we all have grown up in a culture that mocks women's intuition, that dismisses it, and so on. And so when I was a teacher, I just thought it was just practice. I got practiced at knowing when something was going on without even having any evidence of it. But it wasn't. It was my intuition, real strong intuition, that told me something was happening behind me. And I was often surprised that it was, because you turn around and you wouldn't know that something was happening behind me. It wasn't like two children fighting and it was really obvious, or there was loads of noise, but somehow my spider senses were being alerted, and I'd turn around and I'd find that there was a problem. And but I never really paid too much attention to that. And so when I left the profession and started to do all the inner work, and also my art is very intuitive, you know, the way I use color and the brush strokes and the whole sense of creativity is very intuitive. It has deepened my connection to my intuition, and now I really respect it. Now I know it's something to listen to. I do pendulums, sorry, I can't speak properly, to help me make decisions. I meditate and sit, or just sit quietly and just allow ideas and messages to come to me. And also, quite often after I've done a piece of artwork and been in that beautiful state of flow, I come out and I have an answer for something that's been troubling me. More recently, I've started to think about when the fine line between your intuition and your fear, you know. So sometimes our intuition, it's not our intuition, it's our fear that's telling us not to do something. And you know, stopping, you know, having some still time, stopping, reflecting, allowing the intuition to flow through you allows you to know whether it's fear or intuition that's stopping you from working with this person or stopping you from taking this action. So I think that it's important in every aspect of my life. And so it's going to be really, really, and it is really, really important with networking too.
Yeah, and I like that you mentioned the knowing how to distinguish it between feelings, which you might have like from previous experience that, you know, may not be relevant to what you're doing. So it's important to realize when something's coming from like your past traumas versus from when it's coming from, okay, I'm intuiting this about the situation.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, and I sort of said, oh, you know, I just thought I was practiced when I was a teacher, but actually that's really a good thing. You know, you you have to or not you have to, but I've discovered how important my intuition is, and practice it as much as I possibly can, you know, practice those opportunities to use it, and then it just gets more connected, more and more.
Any closing remarks or things you want to add?
Just to say thank you so much for this opportunity. It's been really lovely speaking to you. You've got a lovely energy about you, Laurie, and I love sharing, you know, love you sharing your posts, and I enjoy reading them when they come through on my feed. So just wanted to say thank you, really. Yeah.
Yeah, and I enjoy your post as well.
Oh, good, good. I'm so pleased to hear that. That's lovely. Thank you.
Thank you so much.